Hey y'all, my name is Nick and welcome back to State of Woods Co. So I love to fly fish and so does my buddy Landon. So today we're making walnut and epoxy fly fishing fly boxes. So I heard the fish are biting, so let's get started.
We're going to use some pretty gnarly walnut for these boxes, and the first thing to do is to cut them down to size with your circular saw. We're going to take these pieces over to the old joiner to get a nice straight edge. You can use a track saw if you don't have a joiner. Then we're going to move to the table saw to cut everything down to final width to fit into the forms. The miter saw is really handy to cut down the smaller pieces to size, that way everything fits in the forms. And if you want to, you can set up a little stop block on your miter saw to give you those exact repeatable cuts so everything fits perfectly within those blocks. We want to make sure that the wood is nice and clean and free of debris so it doesn't show up in our epoxy pours. To make these lids, we first built a form out of wood and covered all the walls in Tyvek tape and sealed with silicone. Now the fun part is to mix and match the pieces to create the look that you're going for. Now that we've got our forms ready, it's time to pour the epoxy. We brush on a very thin layer of epoxy to prevent any air bubbles from seeping out of the wood and getting into the resin. Today we're using Totalboat thick set 3-to-1 mixture. There are many different types of pigments that you can go with, but my go-to right now is black diamond pigments. And again, here is another place where you can let your creativity run and just mix any colors that you want. Always stir the epoxy for a good 5 minutes and then again another 5 minutes after adding all the pigments. This Totalboat thick set is designed to be able to pour up to 2 inches thick on small molds and 1 inch thick on larger pours. Because this pour is 3.5 to 4 inches thick, we're going to do this in multiple pours. From what I hear, some of the most oddly satisfying and enjoyable videos on social media these days are epoxy pours, so I'm just going to let you enjoy these next few clips. After we let the epoxy cure for a day or two, it's time to go ahead and take it out of the mold. This mold we made so it could be reusable, so everything was screwed and silicone together. It made it really easy to take apart, and then we can use that mold again in the future. To start getting the lids surfaced, I take them first to the joiner to get one flat face on them. And then we take it over to the bandsaw and we resaw it. Because we poured these forms so thick, we're able to cut these down and get multiple lids out of single pours. Getting multiple lids out of one pour obviously makes it so we can have several different lids of the same color consistency. It also helps us make more lids in less time. Now moving on to the boxes themselves. We're resawing at the bandsaw a block of walnut that we've already milled up. And again, we're saving time by using one big block and resawing it down into 2 pieces. We use the miter saw to cut the box down to size. Now we want to hog out all that material on the inside of the box lid, and the best way we found to do this is to take it to the drill press and use a Forstner bit to get rid of all that internal material. We don't have to worry too much about getting all that excess material out or making it look clean. We're going to get rid of all of that on the router table here shortly. I used double-sided tape to put a template onto the box. I picked up this template from Tyler at Westfall Wood Co. I'll leave a link in the description below. I use a flush trim bit in the router table, and I reference the template to get that nice inside shape. Once I have enough of the inside routed out, I remove that template, raise the flush trim bit, and use the piece itself as the reference. I just continue to increase the height of the flush trim bit until I get the entire inside of the box hogged away. I can also tape that template back on and do the exact same thing with the outside of the box. Good thing about a custom template is I can have this box any size that I want. Just by simply raising the height of the router bit, I can continue to flush trim it all the way until the box is finished. Now moving back to the box lids, there's nothing better than a drum sander to clean these up. Once I have these sanded down to the right thickness, I simply tape them back onto the box itself, and I use the box as the reference for the flush trim bit. So now the lid and the box are identical in shape and size. After adding a nice little decorative chamfer and a little bit of sanding, they're really starting to look like their final product. I did go with a couple of variations of opening mechanisms on these boxes. I did do some traditional hinges that were chiseled into the boxes, but several of these I went with a brass rod through a corner to act as a single hinge. By simply hammering down on both ends of the brass rod, it rounds over the heads and creates a single tight opening action. I did epoxy in a couple earth magnets to help keep the boxes closed. We did wet sand to a higher grit on the epoxy lids just to add that extra sheen when we went to finish. For the finish we went with walrus oil, but you can use a walnut oil or teak or Danish oil. Even Totalboat's Halcyon varnish would look good on these. Now the fun part. It's time to head down to the river and put these things to use. The beautiful thing about these boxes is that the pigment choices can be endless, and with the combination of pigments and woods, the elegance and beauty of these things can just be unbelievable. I don't know if these will help you catch any more fish, but at least your flies will be nice and dry and in a safe place, and you'll look really cool in the water as well. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, hit like and subscribe, and please comment because I really want to hear your feedback. Until next time, happy fishing.